It's Marty Jobson here again, and welcome to my first live micro minute. Hopefully this is all working. We had a little tech complete meltdown moments before I started, but I think everything's back up and running. So anyway, last week as part of the Global Science Show, I showed people some Hydra, a beastie from my pond under my microscope, and it went down really well. So I thought I'd carry on doing that with Micro Minute, which is going to be a thing I do live every Monday, Wednesday and Friday. Hopefully at 12:30 I'll show you something under my microscope. So today I thought what I'd show you is I switch to a different kingdom, to plant kingdom, and I'll show you some of this. There you go, look. It's gone a bit limp already. So I dashed out of my house this morning and grabbed this. This is, of course, the stinging nettle. Urtica dioica is the full sciencey name for this thing. Now, obviously, we know the stinging nettle for causing stings, and when you look at it under the microscope, you can see exactly why it causes stings. So let me switch to this camera here. I'll put my little top camera on, and then I can show you what I'm doing. So what I've got is I've got the microscope under here, and I've got this a different setup from the one I used last time. This one's got a top light, so I'm shining light on it from above, and that allows me to show you this. Let me just get that in focus before I turn it on. That looks pretty good. So here you go. This is what a stinging nettle looks like under the microscope. And if I get that in the right place, there we go. You can see that it really is live. So you can see, I don't know if you can just about make out sort of down here immediately below me, there's actually a little scale bar which shows you how big 2 millimeters is. And it's about 2 millimeters is about that distance on here. So what you can see is that the stem of the stinging nettle is covered in these massive great hairs. I mean, it's covered in hairs anyway, because lots of plants are hairy, but the stinging nettle in particular is covered in these really big, long hairs. They've got a special name. They're called trichomes. Not that that really matters, but if you zoom in on one of these, you can see, I zoom in at the top, and you can see, I mean, the hair is, it really is covered in them. There's quite a good one there, sort of right in the middle of the picture, sticking up proudly like this. And these things are tiny hypodermic syringes, and they are really, really sharp. I pulled out a needle. Here's a needle. You can't really see it. If I turn on this camera here, you can. There's just an ordinary sewing needle, okay? And if I show you that, if I sort of get that into the same picture as under the microscope, this is the difficult bit because I've got to manipulate this. There, can you see that? Okay, so that is the tip. This is really difficult, and I'll focus on the tip of the needle. There it is. There's the tip of the needle, and you can see it looks fairly sharp, but when compared to the tip of this thing, wow, look at that. That needle on the stinging nettle is way, way sharper than this needle. And let's face it, these things are pretty sharp. If I mean, I've stabbed myself with these many times, but these stinging nettle needles are so much sharper. They're absolutely incredibly sharp, way sharper than anything we could make, humans could make, certainly that you could buy. And what happens, obviously, is as you brush against the stinging nettle, and this is why I'm wearing a glove for this one, because I'm handling the stinging nettle, what happens is those needles pierce into your skin and go straight through. Now, you don't really feel that because it's so very sharp, and they're very short. They're only a couple of millimeters long, if I sort of give it a bit of a wiggle. And the other thing about them is you've got this this is the difficult bit again. This is what live microscopy is all about. If I sort of poke it, you can see that? The needle part is actually quite rigid, and they're attached on these little green stems, so to speak. And the green stems, they move about. I'm going to move to a different area to find it. Oh, look, here's a really good one. Actually, focus on that there. Can you see that there? If I get the focus just right. There we go. That's pretty good. And if I give it a bit of a tickle with my probe, you can see the needles don't move, but the little support structure does move, and it bends over. Now, what happens when you brush against the stinging nettle, you obviously skewer these needles straight into your skin. And when you then bend them, you squeeze the liquid that's in that little support globule out, and as you do that, it injects into you a bunch of chemicals. Ooh, microscope's having a bit of a moment. A bunch of chemicals, including an acid. It's actually formic acid. It's the same acid that ants spray out. And that causes irritation because acids cause irritation. You'll know that if you ever get sort of lemon juice in your eye. And the second thing it squirts out is histamine. And if you suffer from hay fever, you know all about histamine because you take antihistamines, and antihistamines help stop hay fever. Because what happens is the pollen that you inhale through your nose, if you have hay fever, kicks off a whole load of reactions and causes histamine to be released in your body, which causes inflammation. And that's what happens when histamine gets in from these stinging nettles. They cause inflammation, and that's what causes the little bump. Because when you get a stinging nettle rash, it actually swells up because of the histamine, and it hurts because of the acid. I mean, there's a bunch of other horrible things in there. And you might wonder, well, why is it that stinging nettles do this? It's to protect them from herbivory. It's to stop them being eaten. And the other thing you can see, if I get rid of that, whoink, and stick in just a leaf. So this is, and I'll show you this on here. So this is now just a leaf on its own. And some people will say that if you grab a leaf of a stinging nettle, you won't get stung. And while that is true, it's not because there aren't any stinging cells. Because if I focus on the leaf, where are you? I have to zoom out for this. If I focus on the leaf, and I'm going to change the illumination so that I can really see this, and then I go back to it for you. There, look, you can see that's the surface of the leaf, and you can see there are stinging cells on the surface of the leaf as well. Okay, there's one, nice and big, zoomed in nice and close. It's got a slightly bent needle, that one. But there are stinging cells on the surface. There's quite a lot of them. And there are stinging cells on the underside of the leaf as well. But the thing is, when you grab a leaf, if you grab it really quickly and with sort of force, and you tend to do that because, let's face it, you think you're about to be stung. So you do that. What happens is you squash all the stinging cells down, and they don't get a chance to inject the stuff into you. They kind of get flattened rather than just being brushed against. So there are stinging cells on the surface. Right, that's all I wanted to show you. This is literally just, I'll zoom right out on this, show you the beautiful patterning and some of the pictures of some of that stuff on the stinging cell. There you go. Isn't that beautiful? Look at that. So thank you very much for watching. And thank you very much also to Zeiss, who give me these microscopes so that I can do all of this for you. Come back on Friday, retweet this little tweet with the stuff, send it to your friends. We'll have a look at something on Friday as well. I'll see you then. That's all from me. Bye-bye. Enjoy the rest of your day.